Well, the backroom dirty deal is happening over the debt ceiling. Maria Bartiromo has some harsh words for the Biden crime family. And we've got two DeSantis videos, campaign videos to run. One, which I think the Trump campaign might want to run on a loop. This is Steve Elliott with Brian Connor for this Grassfire VIP briefing. Brian, it's so good to be giving this report. A lot going on in the news right now.
Yeah, and we're coming to you live. It's very exciting.
How
It's been a
about
while since my live TV days.
It's been a while since your live TV days.
But we had to do it today, Steve. We had to do it.
Why do we have to do it today, Brian?
So much going on. I mean, we went to bed with some news about the debt limit fight, and then that there's talk that there's going to be a deal today, and then we woke up to other news about how conservatives are fuming, and we think that we have. Well, you don't think, we know we have a great initiative at Grassfire that lets people fax some of the key members in this fight. We've targeted a lot of House Freedom Caucus members, and but we should probably save that for a little bit later and get people caught up on what we learned this morning, which has us on Facebook Live.
Let's give McCarthy a little bit. Let's hear what he had to say.
Tell the American public, I am not going to give up. We're not going to default. We're going to solve this problem. I will stay with it until we can get it done. But let's be honest about this. We have to spend less than we spent last year. It is not my fault that the Democrats cannot give up on their spending. Let me tell them.
Okay, so that's McCarthy's position. Of course, we're hoping he will hold firm. But Brian, there's something happening right now that's a little bit concerning that we're starting to get news of, that that the cave may be underway. And let's talk about this. First, look at this headline in the Hill that was just this morning. GOP conservatives fume over possible debt ceiling compromises. Look at some of those compromises. Congressman Good is looking at this. Oh, go ahead, Brian. Give us a little background on what you're hearing.
Well, originally, the Live, Save, Grow Act talked about raising the debt ceiling 1 year for $1.5 trillion. And the reports that we're hearing, again, it's, from these sources that, aren't authorized to speak, publicly. So, there is some rumor behind it, but they want 2 years of $4 trillion of debt limit increase. And that's like almost triple what Republicans passed last month for HR 2811. So if you're going to wipe out, and they had said that, it's going to save, reduce the debt by 4.8 trillion over 10 years. Well, if you're giving 4 trillion more to spend in the next 2 years, that number one, that takes you past the next election cycle. And then secondly, you've just, all the gains that you had supposedly made, you've wiped out. So we can understand why, conservatives who want, lower taxes, less spending, who want, and this is one thing we talked about earlier, they want to see America, especially the people on Capitol Hill, stop their spending addiction. Because they continue to just spend into oblivion. Continue to dig a hole and you'll eventually, work your way out. No, we have to stop the spending.
So what passed the House was a 1 year extension of the debt limit. That's in other words, enough of an increase to take this 1 more year. And now we're hearing that they're going to extend it beyond the 2024 presidential election cycle. Here's what some conservatives in the House are saying. This is Congressman Good. If that were true, that they're going to increase, like you said, $4 trillion and take this 2 more years, that would absolutely collapse the Republican majority for the debt ceiling increase. Less than desirable. I believe that a majority of Republicans would find this objectionable. Look what Congressman Norman says. From what I've seen, watering down is just not the answer. That means McCarthy doesn't have the 218 majority unless he gets Democrats. If he gets Democrats, that's a telltale sign. This is exactly what we don't want to see happen, is that Speaker, the House Speaker, the Republican-controlled Congress, controlled House, passes a debt ceiling increase that a majority of Republicans oppose and is supported by a majority of Democrats. That's not a good compromise, Brian.
No, it's less than ideal. I mean, you can't give away too much, because that's what got us into this problem. in the first place. I mean, again, before we went live, we were talking about it. I mean, inflation is still, from where most Americans stand, it's really hitting them in, their wallets and in their standard of living, their quality of living. Every time you go to the grocery store, the staples that you buy, they continue to go up. And, interest rates have risen, and not only for, lending, but also credit cards. So people are, and real wages have stayed stagnant.
And,
so
and this is the problem. The challenge is that government spending never goes backwards. So we had the huge government spending increase during the COVID shutdown fiasco, the great shutdown, as I like to call it. And there
was nothing great about it.
Well, like the Great Depression. In a bad way, it was great. Massive shutdown that disrupted our economy. I mean, even I just recently saw brought pictures of kids with masks on at school and separated by these weird, bizarre cages. But anyways, the government spending dramatically increased during 2020, 2021 into 2022. And now it's almost impossible to roll that spending back. And that's all McCarthy and Republicans have proposed is basically returning back 1 year and then capping spending to 1% a year. And they just won't do it, Brian. They just are not going to want to do this. So we're calling on everyone who's listening, who's watching, to go to grassfire.com and stop the dirty backroom debt deal that's happening right now. It's happening literally right now. The dirty deal is going to barely roll back spending, if at all. And they're going to extend the debt ceiling beyond this next coming presidential election cycle so that they don't have to deal with this again next year. The original thing that passed the House was a 1-year extension so we can hoist them on their petard of government spending again next year, Brian. This needs to be front and center because government spending is the problem. As President Reagan said, government is the problem, not the answer. And government spending is the symptom of the problem, and it never seems to go backwards.
Well, and the other thing is we've talked about this in the Grassfire messaging. If, people who see this, they'll know if they've been reading our updates. This is how it always happens. It's a dirty backroom deal. Here we are right up against Memorial Day weekend. It's the unofficial start of summer. People's minds are on whether it's just spending time with family, honoring the fallen, and they're not really tuned in to what's happening. So in the middle of the night, when everyone's, not looking and not paying attention, they're going to pass, they're likely, because I still have hope, Steve. I mean, and McCarthy surprised me, and a lot of us, on the conservative side since the beginning. So I still have hope. Hoping he stays true to what we just saw and heard in the video. But still, this is their, modus operandi. This is what they do. It's a last minute thing. They have to have it signed by the 1st, or else, the government's going to run out of money. And then Social Security checks won't go out, or at least I don't think they send actual physical checks anymore. So, but it won't show up in people's accounts. And it's this whole big, manufactured crisis. And this happens all the time. And then we just get something as Americans forced down our throat. And the media will be in, who are in the, on the side of the radical unhinged left will act like this is the greatest thing ever. And, so glad that the Democrats beat the evil Republicans. And yet, every time you turn around and go to the store now, prices are going to continue to go up and up and up. And our wallets are going to get thinner and thinner and thinner.
Yeah.
So that's what we're waiting on. We're sitting on our hands here, hoping for the best, but preparing for the worst.
And if you're a citizen, you're concerned about the size and scope of government, do something about it. Call your congressman, call the White House, go to grassfire.com. We've got action items for you. You can take action so your voice is heard. Now, Brian, there's a couple other issues we do want to cover. This first one, which it's the Biden crime family. It just seems to never end. This is Maria Bartiromo had some tough words. I want everyone to hear about this. And this involves the latest news of more emails, Hunter Biden, a connection to China. Now there's apparently up to, 20 LLCs that are associated with the Biden family that are funneling money. Let's listen to Maria.
Has already identified at least $10 million that was sent to Biden family members. That's just, $10 million for a handful of deals. We don't know how much money they've actually taken in.
And what were they giving in return?
There's no business, Mark. Okay, we're looking for what specifically you were doing to be getting paid, but these are the most severe allegations ever leveled at a president ever, and the mainstream media will not cover it.
Yeah, and most severe allegations ever leveled against the president. Brian, what's your response to that? True?
I'd like to know whether it's true. I'd like the DOJ and the FBI and these, financial institutions to, I'd like to know. I mean, $10 million. And then that was a point that I think Representative Comer made, because he's one of the Republicans leading the investigations, is that, these LLCs, what do they do? There is no family business other than the family business is what's been said. What are they getting in terms of, or in return for these kind of payouts, these kind of receipts? And it's, it seems to be nothing but influence peddling. And, a lot of it is said to have occurred while he was in office as vice president. I mean,
yeah. And so and now we're getting a paper trail, and yet the liberal media could not care less about this story.
Well, it's their guy. You don't want to show your guy, in a negative light.
Yeah.
Because the whole house of cards could come down.
It could. One other big story which broke this week, of course, was Governor DeSantis announcing he's going to run. I want to play a little bit of his announcement ad, his launch ads. I think it'd be good for us to watch that. Let's watch a little bit of it.
Our border is a disaster. Crime infests our cities. The federal government makes it harder for families to make ends meet, and the president flounders. But decline is a choice. Success is attainable, and freedom is worth fighting for. Righting the ship requires restoring sanity to our society, normalcy to our communities, and integrity to our institutions.
It's an interesting. I mean, they thought long and hard about this. They've been processing this for months, Brian.
Months, yeah.
And from a videography standpoint, it's backstage. He comes through a black curtain, and then you see him. He turns side. You get a profile, deep breath. I get through trying to show the seriousness of it, and then he walks forward, and then he comes through another backstage, obviously, like he's going to make a big presentation. I find it a little odd. What was your reaction to that intro?
I felt very contrived. It's like he needs to be a little bit of a better actor. If he's going, I get the concept. Like, he's been waiting in the wings. He's been behind the curtain. He's been doing his things in Florida. And then all of a sudden now he's going to burst out on the scene. But, the Trump, campaign has accused him of running kind of like a shadow campaign for months. And then, he announced it. And, I just think that, they must have better footage. I mean, again, I'm originally a TV guy. And I just think that, there's probably some real video of him standing somewhere, talking to people, being passionate.
No, they weren't looking for real footage. This was all
contrived.
He's been preparing for this moment, and this big moment is now here. And here's toward the end. I just want you to hear the end of this too. Maybe it'll play, Brian. All the interwebs are failing me.
The spinning wheel of death.
The spinning wheel of death. Anyways, what he says is, which is fine, interesting, is it's a little subtle thing, but he calls himself Ron DeSantis. I don't know. Have you ever? It's a little thing, Ron DeSantis.
Instead of DeSantis.
Instead of Ron DeSantis. And it's a little thing, I know, but it goes to an article that Politico came out recently about his wife and her role and how she changed the pronunciation of his name to DeSantis. But it's interesting. The other thing is he calls for what they call for the Great American Comeback. Well,
where have I heard that before?
Where have we heard that? Where have we heard the Great American Comeback before? We'll see if we get the spinning wheel of death on this one as well. But here's a
Why would we ever let Biden kill countless American businesses, jobs, and our economic future when President Trump's Great American Comeback now underway?
This is a 2020 campaign ad for President Trump where he called his campaign the Great American Comeback.
And it's the comeback of the Great American Comeback.
Yeah,
the return of the Great American Comeback.
Sitting backstage, coming through the veil and then taking a deep breath, a profile view, and walking in to announce something that Trump already announced.
You know,
I find it fascinating, Brian. It's just, I don't know that it could have gone worse. Never mind the problems they had with the
Twitter Spaces.
Twitter Spaces. You know, but the other thing that's happening, Brian, you've seen it as I've seen it, is all the Republicans with Trump derangement syndrome are coming out of the woodworks now. This is a text message to some dear friends of mine who all of a sudden the Trump derangement syndrome was all over a text thread. And they were now, well, DeSantis is coming against Trump for what happened with COVID. Okay, we agree. We didn't like a lot of things Trump did with COVID too. No. But here's what I said. Trump was betrayed by Pence. Let's be honest. That's what happened. If you're going to blame Trump for that, then he gets 100% of the unprecedented success, such as Supreme Court, Roe v. Wade overturn, blazing economy and stocks, rollback of regulations, largest tax cut in American history, truly historic Middle East peace treaties.
That were ignored.
There was a full-on coup underway by the deep state, deep state, and just about the entire State Department, along with the media establishment and half his own party. Mic drop, Brian. Okay, yeah. Blame things. Then we got to give him credit for all.
Have you heard back from that friend? Did they respond?
Oh yeah, there's
a lot of truth in there.
There's been more responses, but I'm telling you, Brian, it's Trump derangement syndrome is everywhere. So
and it's funny because it's like the TDS crowd, Trump derangement syndrome crowd. Yeah. They're so relieved.
Yeah.
That DeSantis is now in the race.
Yes.
But he's polling like we just read this morning. Real Clear Politics has DeSantis trailing by like 36%, 37%. It's like 56% for Trump and 19% for DeSantis. It's early. Okay, I get it. It's early. But I mean, the way that there's a New York Post editorial that came out this morning. There's other people who have just talked about it and seem so relieved because Trump has baggage. Trump is a fiery individual. He's a strong presence, even outside of politics. He always has been. Why do you have a top-rated show if you're not a guy with some kind of charisma and some kind of following? But like all that stuff that you just read, I mean, sure, some of it is his own kind of bombastic way of living his life, but you can't argue with the success of the economy. You can argue, like we just said, about some of the COVID things.
How about the historic peace treaties in the Middle East, which never happened before?
We went back. You could go back, Steve, and like no one had mainstream coverage. You had to go to international media outlets to find significant coverage of the Abraham Accords. Right. They were historic, and they were anything that Trump did. It was always no big deal, but unless they made something up about him, right, like a Russia hoax, then they just beat that to death for his entire presidency. Yeah, and this guy, he did all of the stuff he did as president to grow the economy, to secure our border, to overturn, nominate Supreme Court justices that overturned Roe v. Wade, right. And he did it all while being under constant attack from, like you said, his own party, the deep state, the media.
Not just attack, Brian, a full-bore FBI witch hunt against him. I mean, that the former sitting president and vice president were well aware of. They knew it was a hoax that was initiated by his opponent running for president. The whole thing it's bizarre. So, Brian, we got to wrap up. We promised 2 DeSantis videos. In fact, the second one we think Trump should just run this one on a loop, just as a campaign endorsement. Let's get this on here. This is fascinating.
Everyone knows my husband, Ron DeSantis, is endorsed by President Trump, but he's also an amazing dad.
I don't know why it's not coming through clear. Is it fuzzy to you, Brian?
Yeah, there's an orange shoe over it, and it has.
Well, we're going to go. This is live. We're doing it live.
We're doing it live TV.
He reads stories.
Then Mr. Trump said, "You're fired." I love that part.
He's teaching Madison to talk.
Make America great again.
People say Ron's all Trump, but he is so much more.
Big league. So good.
I just thought you should know.
Ron DeSantis for governor.
Okay.
Everyone knows my husband, Ron DeSantis.
If you remember what the time frame was, is that DeSantis was running for governor and he was not winning, and he begged for Trump's endorsement, got it, and then ran that ad, which I'm sorry didn't come out clear, where it's over the top how much he loves Trump. And
it's so good, Steve. That's what he's trying to do. He's going to have to work on his Trump impersonation. So good.
Oh my goodness. It was so, I think Trump could just run that on a loop, on TV.
Yeah. I thought maybe we should put a cringe alert before you started rolling the video, because it's kind of cringy.
And actually, Brian, I love DeSantis. I think he's been a great governor, and I think he's going to be probably a great president in 2028, and he'll complete the last 8 years of the 21 years of Trump hegemony, one of our favorite words. If you go back,
I can't even pronounce.
You go back to 2015. The dominance of Trump in American political life will extend. I'm predicting 21 years, Trump will get reelected, and then his successor, his vice president, or whoever's elected after that, will be following the wave of Trump for another 8 years. Would mean Trump would have dominated American politics, American political life for 21 years. It's very possible. Anyways, Brian, there's so much happening, and we're just so thankful for our Grassfire team members, for our VIPs who are standing with us, who are partnering with us, and are making such a difference. And if you're not a VIP, if you're not partnering with Grassfire, first of all, just go to grassfire.com, do the faxes today, become a VIP, help us out, help us to be a voice. We got hundreds of thousands of team members who are taking action. We're giving you the action items. Grassfire is about you. It's not about our organization. It's about giving you action items. Here's just some of the benefits you'll receive: discounts on our faxes. You'll get our morning briefings. The first to get our morning briefings. You can. We've got a new impact portal which you can access. There's just lots that's available to our VIPs, Brian.
Well, that's our mission. Our job is to report truth that empowers you to take action, and you can do more as a VIP member. I mean, that's just, and it helps us because you're saying, listen, I'm on board with what you guys are doing. $15 a month. I'm going to support you. And then you get those discounts that, give you a voice in Washington, D.C. Because, we're not trying to, personally, we're conservatives. But as far as Grassfire is concerned, we're not trying to carry the water for the Republican Party. We don't agree with them on everything, obviously. But we're trying to
possible cave on the debt ceiling.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we're trying to not carry the water for them, but for you, to empower you to make your voice heard, because we know that there are, millions of Americans who want to see life, liberty, and limited government flourish in this land.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much for watching, and thanks for standing with us. This is Steve Elliott with Brian Connor for Grassfire. Have a great day.